Whether fully by their choice or not, I think an $800 Xbox Series X marks the end of Microsoft's attempt to contribute to the console marketplace this generation, and possibly ever again. Just 2 Decembers ago, the console was seeing holiday sales for $399, in order to undercut its main competition in the PlayStation 5. But already in 2025, we've seen 2 price hikes, driving up the cost of all Xbox hardware and accessories well beyond prices of comparable competition. Xbox Series S consoles, which used to be the value king at $299, have risen to $379 and soon to be $399, that former sale price of the Series X. I personally remember snagging a Series S for my sister at the bargain bin price of $150 from Walmart on clearance a couple of years ago. Now you'd be lucky to find something close to that on the secondhand marketplace if you're lucky. The Series X, which originally retailed for $499, that featured many of the aforementioned sales in years past to $399, is now up to $599 current day and will be $650 as of October 3rd. Most egregiously, the 2TB Galaxy Black Special Edition Xbox Series X, which is a ludicrously long name, has a ludicrously big asking price, starting October 3rd, of $800. There have been no improvements to these consoles. No faster storage, power upgrades, or game-changing controller iterations. Just macroeconomic factors we can all identify, but many don't want to articulate out loud. A combination of tariffs, economic uncertainty, and greed to maintain shrinking profit margins are all at play here. Again, this isn't to say Microsoft and Xbox are alone in their decisions. PlayStation recently increased the price of their console hardware, although by a much more modest $50 per console SKU, and Nintendo raised prices for the 8-year-old Switch 1 hardware to address, quote, changing market conditions in the United States. Nintendo also previously delayed Switch 2 hardware pre-orders while they mulled over tariff uncertainty here in the United States. But Microsoft's decision to raise console prices again, and to the degree in which both sets of increases have been assessed, feel like they come from a place more of malice and profit over players than anything else. Alongside Xbox's initial price hikes were attempts to introduce their own $80 games into the marketplace. Unfortunately for them, a sequel to The Outer Worlds doesn't exactly command the same pre-order fervor of the first new Mario Kart game in over a decade. $800 for an Xbox Series X is headline-grabbing, but let's be honest about what the $649 price the average consumer will identify when seeing the console online or in store. If someone has been wanting an Xbox Series X for some time, how can they justify to themselves paying 30% more for something at MSRP that has seen no tangible improvements? The comparison becomes even more stark when the next aisle over, you might see an also inflated but still $100 cheaper PS5 Slim for sale. With nearly every Xbox game now making its way to PS5 as well, I know which one I'd be hard-pressed to recommend when picking up a new machine for the living room. And if you do have $800 to spend on a console, why would you drop that money on a comparably underpowered Xbox Series X when you could spend $50 less, get the same amount of storage, and pick up a PS5 Pro? Even accounting for picking up the much recommended disk drive attachment needed for the PS5 Pro, you're still only talking about a $30 price difference at that point for vastly more powerful hardware. And this is where I have to bring things back to my original thesis. I truly believe this is Xbox's last whimper in the console marketplace. Sony was already setting a pace to outsell Xbox hardware 3-1 following Black Friday 2023, and Xbox's focus on Game Pass over all else in recent years has not been hard to recognize. Their mid-cycle slim console redesign wasn't a redesign at all, but actually just involved seeing an all-digital version of the Xbox Series X that scrapped the disk drive for a $50 savings in order to force you to be locked into their digital marketplace as your only purchase option long-term. The recent "This is an Xbox" marketing campaign could not be more of a flop. Trying to push cloud gaming capabilities for TVs, phones, and now an Asus ROG Ally X handheld that both companies have still refused to announce pricing for, despite the launch window rapidly approaching in October. But again, we can guess to what factors are contributing to that. Xbox's parent company, Microsoft, seems constantly at odds with their gaming arm's ambitions, regularly hammering down layoffs of staff, closing entire studios, and canceling long in development projects, all in favor of pushing more and more into AI ambitions that may or may not represent yet another tech bubble for the conglomerate to chase. And this is not to deflect blame from Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, and the company who decided it was a genius idea to rapidly acquire development studios in the early COVID years in the era of free money, when borrowing was cheap, and then immediately backpedal on promises to both those studios and consumers as soon as the first sign of a market squeeze started appearing in 2022 and 2023. They have constantly reneged on promises for game launches and console exclusivity, and when questioned about their extremely frequent layoffs and studio closures, their answers have just felt cold, corporate, and procedural. I truly believe so much of what is happening at the Xbox brand, the console pricing, and their ability to market the future of a console ecosystem to the US and global consumers is being pushed out of their hands. Xbox was already set firmly in the third place console manufacturer slot, but still represented a solid value proposition for consumers pre-2025, with the frequency of game releases and variety of content released on their platform. But when the entry point begins to eclipse that of your main competitor and even entry-level PCs, who have much more capability, the argument for maintaining a foothold in the console marketplace begins to crumble. Maybe this is a positive in the eyes of Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, who may be looking for an excuse to offload the Xbox brand or separate them from the organization as a whole. In the meantime, the few console and accessories they do end up selling will need to maintain that same margin they've come to expect even 5 years into the generation. I feel like an old man whenever I bring up previous console generations and how pricing truly used to decrease over time. You could regularly expect a console's MSRP to fall off by half or even 2/3 of its original retail price by the time that the next generation was set to arrive. This allowed many who had been sitting on the sidelines to be able to jump into a generation with an already packed library of discounted games and offered affordability to families, gamers, and console manufacturers looking to offload the end of their stock alike. It feels like those days are long gone. The 8-year-old Switch 1 console received a price hike this year. The PS5 and Xbox Series consoles received price increases 5 years after launch. You can blame macroeconomic factors or economic uncertainty, whatever you want to pinpoint. Even prior to 2025, these consoles didn't see a permanent decrease to MSRP. The die had been cast in some way that margins were to be maintained at the detriment of the consumer. The COVID chip shortage is long gone, but the PS5 and Xbox Series X was still maintaining that $499 price point in 2024, prior to the onset of tariffs. It continues to be a challenging time for everyone, and even the simple pleasures of our leisure time, like video games, are extracting even more from us financially. My advice, if you already have the consoles and hardware, do what you can to make them last. Dust and clean them at least every 6 months. Learn how to make minor repairs on your accessories if you feel capable enough. I recently had a DualSense controller that wouldn't last more than 15 minutes on a single charge. I was able to buy a $12 battery replacement kit and look up the process online to save myself the nearly $80 it would have been otherwise to replace, and learned a valuable skill in the process. Take your consoles in for repair if you notice a significant problem. Although it's painful, a $200 console repair is certainly going to be more cost-effective than a now $650 replacement. Repairing what you have and making what you already own feel like new again is rewarding, and it allows you to allocate the funds you would have had to waste on a brand new replacement to something arguably more important. If you do need a full hardware replacement for that tech that is either far beyond repair or you're just needing a new entry point into something, look for manufacturer refurbished hardware with the same 1-year warranty new units come with, as well as discount coupons at various retailers during certain times of the year. Facebook Marketplace and third-party apps like eBay and Mercari are always an option as well, but please do your due diligence, as these options rarely come with any kind of guarantee or full condition history. I'll end with a note of levity. In a world where everything is getting more expensive, it's one Xbox, Michael. What could it cost? $800? I want to take a minute to acknowledge the absolutely incredible support my last video received. I remarked at its conclusion how nice it was to finally eclipse that 100 subscriber count mark, and then a few days later, I was passing 300. Thank you for the genuinely kind comments and input about your own experience navigating the crazy market and these price fluctuations that we've been seeing in this space. I absolutely promise not every video I will make will be about price hikes or changes, but sometimes the news is the news, and ideas for videos flow accordingly. I'm open to hearing suggestions and feedback in the comments, and would love to hear where you stand on future Xbox purchases and console purchases in general going forward. Again, I immensely appreciate your support. A like on the video lets me know you enjoyed it and can push it out to others. Please subscribe if you haven't already so I can keep creating solid content for you. Be kind, be well, and thank you for watching.